Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, October 24th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files from that web page of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment or a testimonial from you through an email, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. The other option is you can join us live. Most weekdays we're here from 11 a.m. till noon Central Time. And if you go to zoom.us and open a window, or say you want to enter a meeting, the meeting ID for this first hour is 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And as I mentioned, most times in the intro, we're very, very grateful whenever anybody chooses to give us feedback or participate live, because it makes it far more likely that what we do will be useful to you, useful to others, useful to ourselves. If you look back at the archives, especially those where Jeannie Rice has curated out shows that have been highlighted and people say, oh, it's a best of show, or that should be set aside in a special place, almost all of those shows are the result of people just like you calling and asking a question or sending an email. So we would appreciate your comments, your questions, your feedback, your input, your testimonials, your answers. Yesterday, as we were processing in the internet show, I was presenting some worksheets, and near the end of the show, I talked about one of the triggers that I used to generate upset was receiving a text message from my ex-wife, who has very, very little contact with me. Now that the offspring are grown and in their mid-30s, very, very scarce contact. And there's never been any reconciliation, any discussion of, what went wrong that led to the divorce, etc. So my mind generated a lot of negativity through a negative interpretation on this one-word text. And at the end of yesterday's show, I did a very quick mental short version where I just specified the emotion, the thought I was using to create the emotion, the goal that wasn't getting met, and the forgiveness pattern to cancel the thought, cancel the goal, and ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind. And when I did that in the show yesterday, if I remember correctly, what came to me was a series of images or names of people in my life who've done similar things. They were in a relationship with me of one kind or another, and then it ended. Either I ended it or they ended it. And then they just cut off all contact. Now, there are a few people who have just cut off all contact and gone away. I've never heard from them again. But this unique situation that's happened with 3 different people is that they break off all contact. They insist on no communication whatsoever. And then years later, they reach out and offer what I would label a disjointed or an inappropriate level of connection or intimacy. So that was what I learned through the release at the end of the show yesterday. Now, I'll just mention I've let Jeannie know about it. I'm having a consistent problem with the app when I do the worksheets on the app, that it just collapses at the end and doesn't give me an option to send it. So I've learned from that. And when I get near the end and I do my release, if I type enough in 6A or 6B on the worksheet process, I copy it and paste it into a note program before I hit enter, in the hopes that when I hit enter, it'll let me send the email to myself and then I'll have the whole worksheet. But that hasn't been happening. So the first thing I did in response to the show yesterday and my commitment to do that worksheet at the end of the show and then share what comes up from the other worksheets, I just started doing some journaling about this series of people who've been intimate friends or lovers and then broken off the relationship. And so the list of names came up, and there are 3 names that fit that specific pattern. There's a 4th one that, after an intimate relationship, broke off the relationship, moved away, and then never contacted me again. So in the process of just letting myself journal about those different relationships, all of a sudden I realized, I should do another full-fledged worksheet on that one-word text I got from my ex-wife yesterday. And I think I got it on Thursday, late at night. So when I went to do that, I believe I started with anger as my emotion. And the thought I was using to generate the anger was that through her selfishness, my wife seriously disrupted my son's lives and caused them harm. And my goal was simply that I have to amend that. This particular worksheet I'm going to share the processing from, I set it up because after the journaling, I realized I had a lot of sadness about my failure as a husband and a father. So that was the worksheet where I was the subject. What I did was fail at the marriage and fail my sons by not being able to provide them the kind of loving home environment I wanted. And the goal was for myself to be able to function in a way that my wife would stay and help continue the loving, nurturing home life that we had. When I did the release from that, there were a lot of tears, a lot of deep sadness, a lot of getting in touch with the sense that I failed, and I failed my sons more than anything. But I failed my wife because I couldn't be what she wanted to be to stay in the marriage. So there were lots of tears, and through the tears, and allowing them to come and sitting there for a couple minutes, I had even deeper sadness come up. And then kind of an impression that it took a while to get words for, but an impression about some thoughts about how rigid and stuck my ex-wife was at the time and is now, still, 20 some years later. So I had tears, I had flooding with memories of the marriage and the day she told me that she doesn't love me, she never loved me, get out of the house, I want a divorce. And then my notes were, I flashed on memories of how I was so distraught. I created so much upset over this that I couldn't eat out at a restaurant because even if I was sitting there eating alone, especially if I was with somebody else and they were asking me how I was doing, I would break out in tears and wouldn't be able to eat. So I'd either have to take the food home in a doggy bag or I'd leave it there. I was just depressed, despondent, whatever you want to call it. And as I did that release, I remembered that thing about the restaurants, and then I remembered the section in the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. And the thought came to me, I failed miserably at this idea of life that Rudyard Kipling talks about in that poem. The idea about being able to risk it all on one game of, ring and toss or whatever, and lose it all and stoop and pick up the pieces and start again without mentioning my loss or my pain or my suffering. I failed miserably at that. There was a period of time after this divorce where I gained a ton of weight and I was depressed and I managed to keep my practice intact. And not a single person that I saw in therapy knew I was going through a divorce, which stunned me. Years later, some of the repeat people would come back and say, "When did you get divorced? I didn't even know about that." Well, they had been seeing me at the time, but I was able to keep that compartmentalized and do the work with them that would be beneficial for them. And then I did another worksheet on that same thing. And when I canceled the thought and the goal for me to be good enough for my wife to stay and provide a safe, loving, nurturing home for our sons, the tears came up again. There was a lot of sadness. But then there was this weird shift. And it was like somebody took the filter on the camera lens that was at a macro lens, so you can look at something very close and look at all the detail. It's like somebody took that lens off and put a wide angle lens on. And the thought that came to me was, this game of life is rigged and ridiculous. No one can control another or, quote, be good enough, close quotes, for someone who is never satisfied. And then I wrote, the number of complex factors in play go way beyond anything I was aware of at the time of my divorce. And I have it's this felt sense awareness of how much I've learned in the past 22 years. That's what I wrote in my notes of the processing of that worksheet. And the thought was, it's kind of like when that lens focus shifted, I realized with a little different clarity, I really thought I was doing all the stuff right. I mean, most everything right. I really thought we have it knocked. We are really fortunate. We have a wonderful family. We have great kids. We have our own house. You know, we've got some debt from this and that thing that we're doing, but I'm gainfully employed. My wife works. We both have good work ethics. I was sitting there thinking, I'm doing all the right stuff. And when the rug got pulled out from under me, I didn't stay standing. It knocked me over. I was tumbling down the abyss for quite a while. So that's the processing. I'm open to questions or comments, or I might, in the absence of same, just sit here for a minute and see if another worksheet topic comes to mind. We had our support group last night, and we were doing some processing, trying to give people a chance to clean up any loose ends from upsets or irritations that have been in the past. And I wonder if there's something else to be said about the support group last night. So I'll just take a breath and a little sip of water here, and you can decide whether or not you want to raise a comment or a question or provide a different topic.
Hey, Tim.
Hello.
Hi. Um, so last night, that was when I was doing my worksheet. I felt like I gained a lot of insight, and I felt like, because it was at the end of the show and stuff, I felt like you were trying to prompt me to go deeper, and I wasn't getting it. Is that
Well,
true for
I
you?
would have to listen back to it. I did not, as I sit here now, I don't have a memory of thinking you should be going deeper.
Okay, I don't know that you were thinking that, but just, it's your job to help people to do that, And I felt like I was in such upset. Well, I had calmed down by then. Okay, I'll listen
So,
to it.
so yeah, I can certainly go back and listen to that segment of it if you want. I can, send you the recording. Do you have
Please.
a do you have a memory of what was coming from me that you think was indicating that I want you to go deeper?
No, I mean, you were just asking questions and I mean, we were just talking and um I felt like there was more there for me, more insight for me to gain from it, and that I hadn't done it, and it was at the end of the show. So, yeah, if you can send that to me so I can listen to it again.
All right.
and then maybe
Well,
I'll,
if I
if
listen
you,
to it and there's some part of it that says, "Oh yeah, here's what I was missing," I'll be happy to send you a note about that.
okay. Thank you very much.
Is there anything from what you did process that you found key or valuable or that opened up another window to an area to explore? Or,
I felt like just the insight, the connection, the, like I heard you when you were like, when I heard myself say that there is no such thing. I can't connect with anybody. Ruka's the only one I can connect with. Um, and that there were no honest people in the world.
well,
And you had
the key phrases were things like, "I can't be safe if I'm honest."
right, right, absolutely,
And then you had lots of tears when you said something like, "Why would people yell at me for asking a question?"
right, yeah. I like I feel like that part is at least temporarily complete for right now. Um, doesn't mean, that something's not going to come up during the show or afterwards. Um, you had reframed when I said that there were no honest people in the world and I can't connect and stuff. You had reframed it to there are honest people in the world, and I look forward to meeting them. And that was kind of where my notes stopped. I guess I just have to listen to it again to be able to. I and I missed the beginning of the show when you were talking, but I heard that you were talking about connection. I don't know if that came from my processing or
No, I was
what.
talking about the worksheets that I had agreed to do at the end of the show yesterday
Uh huh.
about my ex-wife and the divorce and whatever, and the out of the blue text message she sent that I chose to throw a negative interpretation on, and then it resonated up all of this grief about the loss in the marriage and the harm to my kids. And so then that was the target for several worksheets this morning, very tearful worksheets and processing, at the end of which there was that shift from that macro lens to kind of a wide angle lens and kind of an acceptance of the fact that I didn't know a fraction of what I know today when I was that age 20 some years ago.
Right.
And so we'll see where that leads, in future days and with worksheets. But for now, there's a significant shift with that change from the macro lens to the wide angle lens. So I hope
Yes.
that clears it up for you.
Well, I just didn't know, and when I heard the word connection, I didn't know if that came from what I was
No,
talking about,
that
because
that
that's
that was about
that's
how I've had several people in my life that have intimate relationships, some friendships, some, lover relationships. And there have been three of them where after the relationship ended, that person cut off all contact for a number of years. And then out of the blue, years later, send me some kind of a message that to my sensibilities is not appropriate, right? It's like it's an offer of rekindling the relationship or of intimacy or whatever that, and so that was the connection we were talking about.
Okay, so that's where I feel like incomplete and that you were maybe trying to help me to see something else in this whole, because I was like, what's the point? You can't really connect with anybody when I was talking about my closest friend ever in my life and finding out about all these lies after she died that and I thought it was a mutually
Open and honest
honest
relationship,
relationship.
right? But that's another
Yeah.
thing we were talking about last night. There's so much that anybody learns after they make the decision to try and be more honest. Anybody, especially in this Western culture, the way we've been raised, the entire culture is about misrepresentation and dishonesty and wearing masks and having the right clothes or makeup or accoutrements so that you look different and you attract something different. So the whole culture is based on pretense. And anybody who's raised in this culture who makes a decision to get radically honest is going to have a long road to hoe because we are so programmed to hide things, to show only partial things, to tell a little white lie, to misrepresent, to put on a brave face, etc., that we have no idea how much we're doing it until we decide to change.
Yeah, I was talking last night about in AA, and they say that you got to be rigorously honest. Those who do not recover lack the capacity, like, to be rigorously honest. And then they also told me you're only as sick as your secrets. And so I became very, very radically honest and have gone to the point where I have been accused of oversharing. Like, you know, which is it's the same thing that I got from my mom, though, right? It's like, you don't ask those questions, you don't talk about those kind of things. Like, I guess, like, this confused child is wondering what the hell is appropriate to share with people. Sorry about the
No,
harsh
no,
language.
no need to apologize. So the answer to that question for that tormented younger part of you, the question is, what the heck's appropriate to share? That answer will evolve and change from person to person and situation to situation. And it isn't something that we learn in our youth. It's a lifelong process of learning.
I knew you were going to say that was variable on, and that it depends on the individual.
Right. And so you want to
And
get in touch with that younger part of you that's so frustrated and comfort her. And do what you can to believe or at least fake the belief that it's not the adult Cammy who's upset right now. It's not the adult Cammy who gets scared. It's not the adult Cammy who gets enraged about the injustices in life. It's a younger, often wounded part of Cami.
Yes.
And so
And
do
and
what you can to just comfort her when these thoughts come up.
yeah, I'm seeing the value in that where I didn't for years. The parts work. Um, I don't know if it was just too much for me at the time. Um,
Well, that would be the best guess, right? That's how most of us who've
yeah.
been learning at different things at different times or been on a path for a while, most of us have had the experience of, oh, wait a minute, I saw this book 30 years ago, or oh, I read that once, but it didn't really resonate with me. And yet, a number of years later or a number of months later, upon rereading, it's a whole new book, seemingly.
Yeah.
I remember one time I had a person I was working with, and I forget exactly the issue, but I thought this is the perfect book to help this person. It might have been the book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship, or it might have been the book, The Boy Who Couldn't Stop Washing His Hands, one of those two, either on obsessive compulsive patterns or on verbally abusive patterns. And I gave it to her, and she was bright and willing, and so she read it grudgingly and came back and talked about how she doesn't know why I thought she might uh, uh, benefit from that book. That doesn't sound like her at all. She didn't see herself in it at all. 2 months later, I to this day I don't remember what prompted her to go back and reread it, but she came in with, "Man, I can't believe that's the same book." I'm pretty sure they didn't change the printing on the book that she already owned. So,
Right.
and it's a similar thing that happened in my release this morning, where I went from that lens that like a macro lens, close up, or even a microscopic view to the wide angle view. And I realized how little I knew, or I had another level of realization of how little I actually knew about life, about relationships, about my own inner process, etc., 20 some years ago. And then, what I do with that, I don't, right now, I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just letting it sit there as a realization. And I'm
Right.
sure, I'm sure it'll weave itself into or through um, awarenesses I have as I do further worksheets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel like about this, that there was a lot and there's a lot more work to do on it all, which may be where my feeling like I was missing something that you were trying to say came from. I don't know. But
Well,
thank you. And if you would
time
send
will
that to
tell.
me.
I
Yeah, if
will.
you would.
I'll
Okay.
try and work on that before I'll do it in my lunch hour today and try and get that off to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome and deserving. Somebody wrote, Susan Bingham writes the question, Cami, that's a great question. What's appropriate to share? What is appropriate to share? Well, hopefully we gave you a satisfactory answer for that, Susan Bingham, that the answer to that question will vary from person to person and relationship to relationship. And there will be parts of us that beat ourselves up for not performing at a level that we think we should. And no part of us that is ever beating us up knows the whole thing, knows the whole truth. Any part of us or any entity outside of us that knows the whole truth and sees the whole picture will never be beating us up, will never be pouring on negativity. Healthy, happy, well-balanced people share things, say things, do things with an intention to extend their happiness, to build other people up, to make loving connections. And so by extension, you can instantly know that if you have somebody who's throwing insults or tearing somebody down or blaming, or you instantly know that person is not happy. What you hear, what you see coming out of another person is always going to tell you more about what's going on in that person than it's ever going to tell you about you or the world around that person.
I
And
was
that's a really good thing to turn into a mantra. Go ahead, Cami.
I was thinking about how, yes, like looking back, there were definite signs from the people that I was sharing things that were not to anybody's benefit and made things worse for myself by going like so rigidly with this radical honesty. You're only as sick as your secrets, especially within my family. It's like I had two sisters that were in Al-Anon at the same time that I was going to AA and Al-Anon, and they just weren't at that level of honesty, and the signs were there. I wasn't in touch enough because I was so self-centered and so self-absorbed that I wasn't picking up on those clues. So other people will tell us from their body language or their way that they respond what's appropriate to share with them.
Right. So you'll
Right.
when you're able to tune into those cues, the social cues, the connection, if you're not on that autism spectrum where it's really difficult for you to tune into those things, that doesn't come natural to you, you'll have to work harder. But the answer to the question, how much is appropriate to share, is this living dynamic that gets revealed as you're interacting with the
Right.
person. If what is coming out of you or any other person is based on some belief you have because you were in an AA meeting and they said, it's our secrets that keep us sick or whatever, then you might have fallen into the category of people, and this is a pattern that lots of us fall into. Have you ever heard the expression to be brutally honest?
Yeah, it was called that back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might have fallen into the pattern of us as humans who fall into, we think it's good to be brutally honest, and the truth is we're more interested in being brutal than we are the impact of our honesty. And so that harshness, that you might call it brutality, that comes out of people in that pattern is often a defense mechanism to keep people at a distance.
I can see that. Yep. I've actually been able to see that for years. I I think with other people, just not with my family, because with my family, I wanted validation from them so
Okay,
badly.
what do you mean
Yeah.
with other people but not with my family? What with other people but
Able
not with my
able
family?
to see that it was more I don't know how you worded it, but it was
It
more
was a defense
brutal.
mechanism to
Yeah, but
distance
it was,
from people than it
yes.
is being interested in being honest and connecting, right? So here's the idea about
Hmm.
it's one of the reasons I really enjoyed that audible book titled The Art of Nonviolent Communication.
Hmm.
And when someone does a really good presentation of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's work on nonviolent communication, I count it a really good presentation if they spend a lot of energy up front clarifying, why am I even talking to this person? And establishing that the reason for me opening my mouth to try and communicate with someone in this kind of context is because I want to connect, because I want us to get along, because I want to clear up a communication for the purpose of having us feeling more connected. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
absolutely missing in people when they jump on the we need to be brutally honest and they focus more on the brutality than on the honesty.
Yeah. The girl that told me that, she wrote in a book, I think it was my big book, from eating disorder treatment. And she put that she loved my brutal honesty. So I took it as a compliment. And when you said that, it's like, no, um, whether she meant it as a compliment or not, it certainly wasn't. Um, and I can definitely see back then that it was to keep people away. Thank you for that. In a lot of instances, it's like, so here, now what are you going to do with that sort of thing? You know, like, okay, maybe this is getting too close. And I could see me in my 20s doing that, which is when that happened. Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you.
You're very welcome and deserving.
I'm going to chime in right here. This is Sally. I'm grateful for the conversation and around honesty and finding the best way to be a good human and connect with people while being as honest as possible. And I haven't always had a really good relationship with honesty because I was one of those people that learned by the age of 5 that honesty wasn't always safe at all. So I I've really had to go along a journey on this, and I'm doing really well, I think, and I'm grateful for the what you said, Tim. Um, I can be honest and be safe. Um, yeah, that rang probably more worksheets around that because learning honesty came later in life and I had a lot of it to work on. So that said, I also wanted to thank you for doing the worksheets around hearing from a former spouse, because on the same day you said you heard from a former spouse, I did too, after 7 years of no conversation. And so,
Something in the water.
yeah, I don't know. And so present, I was present enough to not respond right away, but to take it to the worksheets and once I cleared myself of any of my meanings that I was giving it, it was easy to just handle it matter of factly. And it is really a funny feeling when an ex partner, former partner, whatever you want to call it, you know, sends something out of the blue as though you've been there all along, and the conscious mind is trying to figure out, what is this about? Yeah.
I tell you what, as soon as you were saying that, Sally, my mind says, I am so glad that that happens. Now, the happening here is my response, right? I'm so glad that I don't just take the bait
Right.
and pretend.
Right.
And as you were saying that, I flashed on this particular person that I was thinking about was a 5-year relationship. And she had introduced me to her family, her adult children and grandchildren, and I was known as, Grandpa Timmy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was devastating when she says it's over, get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 8.5 years later, she sends me an email and says, hey, you want to get together for lunch? Unless, of course, you've got some jealous wife by now.
Oh my.
And my response over time, carefully considered, et cetera, did exactly what I thought it would do, and I'd have her run for the hills because I didn't, you know, meet for lunch, jump back into bed, beg forgiveness, whatever. I don't know what she was expecting. The
Mm-hmm.
point is, her um, daughter, the one of she had 4 daughters that were all grown. The daughter that was closest to me lives closest to me, and therefore I was much more active in her children's lives and her life. She agreed with me, and she said, yeah, I had a hard time trying to convince mom that this is bizarre, right? Her mom was thinking, oh, no problem, I'll just reach out, see if he's available. And but her daughter got it, right? So here's the validation. Have you heard the phrase consider the source?
Yes, absolutely.
I routinely bring this up for people when they're generating a lot of upset in response to what someone says or does. And that idea of, okay, wait a minute. If I just take a step back and I look at who this one person was and how much I agreed or disagreed with their judgment on things, and this person, who they are and how much I agree or disagree, the one that I agree with more often, that I think is more balanced and healthy, I want to consider that when I'm weighing whatever they say. And the one where I'm constantly cocking my head wondering, well, geez, how did they reach that conclusion? Or what are they coming? How did they get that? I want to consider that when I evaluate anything coming from them. And so I was sitting here as you were talking thinking, I am so glad that I don't think that's okay to just reach out and offer intimacy after years of silence or after a brutal separation and nastiness. And I'm just glad my mind works that way, that that's what my parents gave me, because it allows me to construct a more durable, consistent pattern of relationships in my life that have been, just beyond words valuable. And as this one thing said, this one note that I read was, I kind of had one of these shifts at the end of that processing where it wasn't really a thought with words. It was this felt sense. And when I tried to put words on it, it was something about how rigid and unhappy she is. right? She's one of those people who would send me, something like fishing for intimacy or reconnection after years of verbal abuse and anger and silent treatment, etc. I'm just glad my brain doesn't work that way. I'm glad that I have the wherewithal to either identify and or sidestep that kind of middle school drama trauma stuff.
Ditto. I am very glad also. And all of our years of training get to benefit us as well. I'm grateful too. When you talk about the good parents, mine were far from perfect, but oh my goodness, they could think and they could, you know, they could step back and they could continuously work on responsibility communication. And I actually got to witness them getting better at it, not just with each other, but with me. And oh my goodness, it, it's quite a gift, and I'm grateful for that. And I think it's almost the end of the hour, so I'll be quiet again.
Is that the truth? Did we actually go a full hour? No. We've got another 7 minutes. So you can hold court or you can invite somebody else to join you. We have a variety of people on here. Feel free to speak up and either talk about something that we can wrap up today or highlight a topic you'd like us to move to next week. In lieu of somebody unmuting and speaking up, I want to say that yesterday, immediately after the internet show, I did an
Yeah,
interview.
babe.
Hello.
Sorry.
I did an interview with Roman Wyden. Wyden is his last name. And his website is adhdisover.com. And it was what I would consider one of my better interviews. Technical difficulties are affecting the sound quality, but the content, I think, was wonderful. I mention it now for the purpose of putting it out there that in the beginning of the interview, he said, if anybody has a child with a recent diagnosis or an adult with a recent diagnosis of ADHD, he will make sure they get a free book because he wants them to be able to get access to what he's learned in the past 10 years of his mission to uncover what ADHD is and how it's treated and whether or not there's good solutions to it, etc., ever since his 7-year-old son got diagnosed with it. So the problem that happened in the interview was all technical. And I thought it was a good interview and I could hear him and he could hear me. But when I went to listen to the recording, my voice was normal volume and his was barely a whisper. So the quick fix I did for it was a batch normalization and amplification. So now his voice sounds good and mine is overmodulated. So if somebody's interested in that, I will send them a copy, unedited, not professionally modulated, etc., just so they can have access to it. Or I'll let you know, if you go to the website adhdisover.com and send him a request through his contact form on the website, I know it works because that's how I got him to do the interview. So if you just go to adhd.com and if you fill out the contact form on the website and you just say, Dr. Tim said that if you have a recent diagnosis, you'll help me get a book, see what happens. That's a huge topic, as I've mentioned before. this person, Roman Wyden, did an interview with Dr. Roger McFillin on his podcast titled Radically Genuine. And that's what prompted me to reach out to him, because I wanted to help him promote his book and get the news out there about this understanding of all the dynamics in play, or as many dynamics in play around this as we can, so people can make better informed choices about their lives and whether or not they take medication or they give their kids medication, etc. So there you have it. I have somebody saying, I'd love to hear the yes, please. Okay, so I have 3 people, Susan and Cammie and Sally. So I will do what I can to get a copy of it to you.
Once again, thank you for all you do to propagate good material. I just want to say it one more time. You're the best. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome and deserving. And factually speaking, I'm not the best. I'm 3rd on the list, but I'm working. Right? I'm one of those people like I try harder because I'm 3rd place. What was that? Car rental ad or something?
I love it.
All right. Well,
Honesty.
thank you for the kind words. And here's Terry saying yes. So let me just tell every one of you who's listening, if you want a copy of that, please send me an email. That way I won't miss anybody.